Have you ever felt like your marketing just isn't working? Like you're pouring money into ads, boosting posts, or trying every trendy tactic out there, but nothing's clicking the way you hoped? Maybe you're starting to wonder if the problem isn't your strategy, but your approach. What if the secret to creating marketing that truly connects and converts lies not in the newest platform or funnel hack, but in understanding how your customer thinks? Welcome back to another episode of the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Lonergan, and today's conversation is going to be a complete shift on the way you think about marketing. I sat down with Rai Cornell, a seasoned marketing consultant with over 18 years of experience and a fascinating background as a correctional psychologist and substance abuse counselor. She brings a psychology-first approach to content marketing, and in this episode, she reveals why understanding human behavior is the missing link for most entrepreneurs trying to scale their businesses. We dig deep into what's actually broken about traditional marketing, how to stop shouting into the void with call to action overload, and instead start building a trust-driven content strategy that guides people through a buying journey without ever needing a hard sell. Rai walks us through her elite method, a step-by-step system rooted in real psychology and backed by data that can transform how your audience experiences your brand, from the first touch point all the way to long-term retention. If you've ever wondered how to make your content stand out in a crowded market, how to communicate your value without sounding desperate, or how to build a marketing system that generates pre-sold, ready-to-buy leads, this episode is for you. Rai shares actionable insights and powerful tools that will help you elevate your strategy, strengthen your brand, and finally see your marketing start working with you, not against you. And if you're ready to start applying smarter strategy to more than just your marketing, I've got something else for you. Head over to vitalstrategies.com/tax to start building out your personalized tax strategy. We've put together powerful tools and guidance that can help you save more, grow faster, and keep more of what you earn. Because real wealth isn't just about revenue, it's about what you keep. This episode is packed with gold from start to finish. So stay with us, take notes, and let's build marketing that actually works. Rai, thank you so much for joining me here today. I'm excited about this conversation. We're going to dig into really marketing, but doing that and looking at it from a psychology strategist point of view. And your background lends itself well to that. We'll get into that in a minute, but really just excited about the expertise you bring in content marketing and consulting for B2B businesses that are really looking to grow and scale their business without throwing more dollars down what can feel like a black hole when it comes to ads. So thank you so much for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So when I think about the things that the entrepreneur is looking at and worried about, they're like, man, marketing feels disjointed. I'm like spending money over here. I feel a little salesy. I've got all these things going on and I'm not even sure what drives buying decisions. And my conversion rates are low. Funnels, do they even work? Where are the leads coming from? And then they're just tired of pouring money into marketing that doesn't work. Remember my first marketing that I ever did 20 years ago. I put this ad in this handout thing and I thought it was going to be great and produced absolutely nothing for me. I'm like, oh man, this is frustrating. And so they can feel uncertain and overwhelmed, even embarrassed, right? Like I remember spending the money on this thing, like being excited about it, and it produced nothing. And, that marketing doesn't reflect the brilliance of their business. They could be providing a ton of value. And if you're not communicating that message, well, it's a problem. And then I think the last problem is just thinking about, marketing should reflect the intelligence of the buyer and reflect the integrity of the brand. And, the buyer deserves better, right? They deserve marketing that builds a relationship, not just like, a dollar sign running through the pipeline. So thank you so much for joining us here today. This is going to be good.
Yeah, this is what I eat, sleep, breathe. I absolutely love talking about psych marketing. So yeah. I'm ready to dive in.
All right. Very good. So you've been in the marketing space for 18 plus years, but before that you were a correctional psychologist and substance abuse counselor, and you transitioned into marketing. And so do you want to just give us a little bit of your story on how you made that transition and how you are utilizing these tools?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, I started out as a corrections and substance abuse counselor, and All the while I was getting my bachelor's degree in psychology, and I got a master's in professional clinical counseling and marriage and family therapy, and I got another master's in criminology. And throughout school, I was freelance writing on the side. So I was doing website content, website copy, web dev, and I just thought that was gonna be my little side hustle to pay my way through school and get this career jump started. Little did I know that after 8 years of working in mental hospitals and community counseling centers and drug rehab facilities working with parolees and probationers, I ended up throwing myself full time into that marketing business and really making it my main purpose, my main passion. And I still love the psychology of understanding how people make decisions and how people design their own lives.
Mm.
So when I was working as a corrections counselor and a substance abuse counselor, I worked with the most difficult personalities to help them change the most deeply ingrained behaviors, whether that was addiction, criminal behavior, or personality disorders. That was my area of expertise. So I really got to understand how people's external lives and external behaviors come to be based on the internal mechanisms that are going on inside their minds. And now I take those same models and apply them to my marketing strategies.
I love it. I love it. And it's so interesting. I think there's so much that happens to us and we make so many decisions. And I don't even know. I think for the most part, especially when I'm thinking about like, I think therapy and counseling is valuable. I go on a very regular basis. And one of the things that I'm constantly working on unpacking is why I make decisions. And there's these things
Mm,
that are sort of like hanging out in the background,
yeah.
sort of affecting my decision making for good and bad. Right. I think and so I I think the work that you're doing is fantastic. Can we take a step back for a second and talk a little bit about I'm going to say some of the problems with traditional marketing, maybe unpack some of those and then we can get into the solution on how we resolve that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that you said that was really interesting to me earlier is you said when you first started marketing, you put out an ad. Now I
Mhm,
think one of the really big things for people to understand, especially as they're marketing for their own business, is there's a huge difference between marketing and advertising. Advertising is all about putting out an offer, doing something to entice someone to contact you.
mhm,
But that's not marketing. That's what happens later on in the funnel. Marketing is all about building a relationship.
mm,
It's about building that know, like, and trust factor without ever having a human to human conversation. It's your business showing up in the places it needs to, providing information, education, helpful resources, and acquiring that trust. You really have to earn it.
mhm,
So, marketing, I like to think of that as the relationship. Advertising is like a point of contact.
mm. Yeah, I love that, and it's so interesting you say this because we took I'm not in my office today. We're in Fargo, North Dakota, and it was a 9-hour road trip with my daughter, and it was awesome. And but the interesting thing, I'm thinking about the marketing that you're describing. On our way here, we went out of our way to find restaurants and gas stations that we have what we feel like are a relationship with. Now, we've never been to these specific places, but it's like, hey, I know when I go to this gas station, the bathrooms are going to be clean, the service is going to be friendly, they're going to have a selection of, the stuff we like to eat and drink. And so um, that's such an interesting observation because it's like, their ads on the side of the road aren't getting me to show up. It's the relationship I have with that brand, we'll say, that gets me to drive 5 miles out of my way to just find that experience. So,
Exactly, and depending on how headstrong your target audience is,
mhm,
sometimes advertising actually works against you.
mm,
My husband and I, we kinda tend towards rebellious personalities. We're entrepreneurs, we like to do things on our own, and if someone cold calls us or cold emails us or puts an ad in front of us in the middle of a video we're trying to watch, we have this weird mental note to never purchase from that company because we're like, how dare you?
yeah,
Do not intrude on my quiet time, my personal life. If I want what you have to offer, I'm smart enough to go out and research and find you. But
mm,
that's the thing nowadays, especially and I will also say, especially in Western culture,
mhm,
the buyer wants to be in control of that buying journey. And you have to let them. And that's one of the most uncomfortable things for business owners to do, is to create a system that hands over control to the buyer, but you really are able to do that effectively and predict what your pipeline is going to look like when you lean into human behavior and really map your marketing strategy to what that buyer wants to experience. So even though it is a bit of a relinquishment of control, you can still have that predictability within it.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, great. So we've talked about advertising and marketing. And advertising is, would you say it's a bid for attention? Like I'm
Yes.
in this loud world, I'm trying to like, get somebody to like stop what they're doing, scrolling, and it's interesting. I think we can look at that bid for attention um, when we think about advertising, because we think about all of the new opportunities, right, with social
Mhm.
media and that type of thing. But somebody that's gotten my attention lately actually sent me some direct mail. I'm like, nobody's actually doing this anymore. It's sort of
Yeah.
everybody's trying to get online and get my attention. And they went over the top. They sent me this enormous package. It was an envelope, but it was huge. And I had to reach out to the guy because I'm like, hey, this was a fantastic. I'm not ready to buy. I'm not
Yeah.
interested in your service, but I just want to acknowledge like it works. Like you got
Yeah.
my attention on this one. So
Yeah. I think a lot of times what happens is when people think marketing, they think sales. And that's the problem, is when people put the wrong things in the wrong places. So for example, I worked with a MSP, MSSP hybrid company for a while, so managed services and cybersecurity.
Mhm.
And when I first started working with them, I looked at all of their online presences, their website, their social media, all of these places where people could just go and read about them if they looked up the company name. Everywhere you looked, it was call us, book a call, book a demo. It
Mhm.
was a constant bombardment of a call to action. There
Yeah.
was no value they were providing. And yet, when I talked to the people running the company, they had so much value to offer. They had this entire model that they were basing their business on and their customer experience on. And it was brilliant. And it
Mhm.
was something that if they led with that, that's what would really attract people in while building that trust. So all we did was take their very bottom funnel messaging and put it back at the bottom of the funnel where it belongs. And
Mhm.
then we filled in the gaps of the top of funnel messaging, which was the value add, the education, the information people are seeking. And they went from getting 1 leads per month to 41
Wow.
leads per month inbound. And that is all we changed to get those numbers.
Yeah. So is is this a trust issue? Are we moving from like I have no trust when I see your ad or your call to action to call and schedule an appointment to, hey, let me introduce myself. Let me give you some insight into maybe not even introduce myself. Let me help you solve your problem, right? Hey, you've got a cybersecurity issue. Here's the top 10 things that every company needs to do. And you're like,
Yes.
oh, great. Now I can't execute on those because I don't know how to do that. But now I have somebody that I'm thinking about reaching out to because they just gave me the answer to my problem, right? Is trust like, and yeah, I'm curious about the trust opportunity here because it seems like that's where I'm at. When I'm
Yeah.
thinking about my road trip and stopping at those restaurants and gas stations, it was like I trust them
Yeah.
to deliver because they're good at delivering in my experience. And so, um, but I think we can deliver that lots of different ways. So I'm curious your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we live in a time and in a culture where there are two things that are not scarce, but we feel like they are. And those are time and money.
Mm.
And especially in B2B buying decisions, companies want to trust, they want to have some level of, they don't even need a guarantee, but they want to feel like there's a guarantee that they're going to get their money's worth and it's going to help save them time and frustration.
Yeah.
So anything that you're doing in your marketing, it has to build that trust. And the only way to do that is to show that you're trustworthy. You can't tell people, hey, trust me. Because when I say that, like, hey, take my word for it.
Mhm.
What do you think?
No way. Yeah.
Something fishy's going
Right.
on. Like, why
Yeah.
are you telling me to trust you?
Mhm.
That's weird. Stop
Yeah.
it. So you have to show them that you're trustworthy. And so what we do within our marketing strategies is there's a point where we home in on what it takes to build that know, like, and trust factor. And it's all about neurotransmitters. So there are a zillion different chemicals going on in our brains all the time, but there are three in particular that you really need to focus on for your marketing. The know factor is allowing someone to become aware of you. And you do that by delivering these quick hits of information that satisfy parts of the brain. That activates dopamine. That makes them feel good towards you. You're giving them this internal satisfaction. Then, as they move down through your funnel, they need to like you. So, this is where you need to use messaging that tells them, I hear you, I see you, I feel the pain that you're feeling. I understand you on a human to human level. This has to be very emotionally connected and a lot of kind of like the intrinsic benefits that they're going to get from working with you. And that's how you activate oxytocin and they form an emotional bond to your brand where they like you. And then lastly is the trust factor. And this is where you need to make sure that the promise that you're offering earlier on in the funnel is actually what's delivered. They need to see consistency of messaging. They need to feel like you are making promises and delivering on them, whether that's, hey, use this coupon code, or hey, put your email here and we're going to send this to you in the next hour. It can be something as simple and automated as that, but they need to build that trust factor. And when you allow them to move faster towards achieving their goals, that's where you release endorphins. And that's the neurotransmitter that gets them feeling like, okay, I'm safe here.
Yeah.
I'm accomplishing things. I'm moving in the direction that I want to. I'm feeling like this is good for me.
Yeah.
Now I'm ready to buy.
I love it. I also love what you've done with taking the psychology and bringing it in under the science behind it, because I think about some of the things that you've talked about here, and those are things that I'll say working on as tools. Like sometimes I'm so quick to want to solve, right? Somebody comes to me with a problem and I want to solve it. But what I need to do is um I'll say validate what they're feeling, right? Like I slow down for a minute and I'm like, okay, I can understand why that's a problem. I don't necessarily have to agree with it, but I can validate why they're feeling that way. And then I think, moving on from that point and just thinking of all the things you just talked about, like those are so good on just helping somebody walk through the emotional aspects, because it's like, unfortunately, we want to take and turn uh, this person checking out our website into a dollar bill, right? Like at the end of the day, that's why we're in business. We're here to be profitable and make some money. Um, but I think that most of the people that have successful businesses have figured out that it's a relationship game, and we have to build relationship. But it's awfully hard to do through these digital things. If they would just show
Yeah.
up in our office and sit down with us and we could talk through their problems, it would work. But our website, unfortunately, is the way that happens. And I love how you're bringing these pieces into the equation. So I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, because I would love to get into your process for how we sort of, somebody comes to you and goes, Ray, help me. What do I do next? So
Yeah.
anything else to
Yeah.
add before we jump into the process? Or are we ready for that?
Yeah. Let me just add one thing, which is that I think you said something really important, which is that when somebody comes to our website, we want to turn them into dollars.
Mhm.
However, if we focus on that as our goal, it goes away. It's elusive.
Mm.
It's like, have you ever seen those wall hangings that are like this rainbow computerized image that just looks like squiggles? But then if you kind of look off to the side and let it be in your peripheral vision and you relax your eyes, suddenly you see this image of penguins or a
Mhm.
ship on waves coming at you. It's kind of like that. If you look directly at the thing, which in this case might be trying to get conversions, trying to turn those site visitors into dollar signs, you're not going to make it happen because people are going to feel that. And they're going to feel that all you care about is the transaction and their money that's in their pocket. Whereas if you focus on something else and you focus on building trust and giving that person what they need in order to feel safe to give you their money, the money is going to be a inevitable byproduct.
Mhm. Yeah, I love this, because I think we might get some people that turn into dollars, but the number of people we would have to get to our website, when our conversions are so low because it's just we're ineffective in our communication. I just think of the value that we bring into the equation, both for the visitor and our business when we level up the work that we're doing. So
Yep.
this is good because I see this, sales and marketing, right? Like I could be a
Yes.
great salesperson and I could knock on I don't even know if I need to be a great salesperson. I could knock on 1,000 doors, right? And if my conversion's 3%, I can go, cool. If I knock on 2,000 doors tomorrow, I make twice as much money. Or I can become more effective. I can dial in my communication and I can still knock on the same 1,000 doors, but I might get up to 3 or 4x if I improve my process, and connect with
Right.
people on a different level. So I
Right.
think,
And marketing's job is to make sure that when you show up at that door, they open the door and they go, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I've been seeing you and I've learned this thing, or I listened to this podcast you did, or I read this article that you wrote. I've been meaning to reach out to you. Thanks. Thanks for coming to me. Now I'm ready." So
yeah,
your 3% now goes up to 30%,
hmm yeah,
and you have to knock on fewer doors to get that same amount of money.
I love it. All right. Now I'd like to talk about the elite method. And I love this name, by the way. Who doesn't want the elite method in their lives? So can you walk us through the elite method and then we'll dig into each of the steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I will say about this method is oftentimes when I lay this all out for people, they go, "Well, of course I need to do this. And of course I need to do that. And of course I should be doing this." But the thing is, nobody ever does it in this order. Everyone always hones in on the implement, the build part of the process. That's what people get excited about within marketing. And yet, the reason your marketing's not working is because you're not doing it in this order and you're forgetting critical steps either because they feel too daunting, they're really uncomfortable,
Mhm.
or you don't have a good system for them. So, this method lays it all out for you, puts it in a nice, streamlined step by step process. And then if you were to work with me, you would get the exact automations and systems to make a lot of this process just happen overnight. And we have some things that we'll give away at the end of the episode that will allow you to do this yourself. But I just want to say, you know, I think a lot of people need to trust themselves.
Mhm.
So when you have this little voice in the back of your head saying, "Oh, yeah, okay, I really should be doing this," listen to that little voice and don't cut corners on your marketing. So
Love it.
to that end, the
Mhm.
ELITE, elite method, starts with E, examine. This is where you have to take a really good, hard look at what you're putting out there. Like I said about that client I worked with, who, when you just look at their outward online presences, not their nurture sequences, not their sales assets, not their proposals, but their top of funnel, just publicly visible appearance, everything they were saying screamed desperation.
Mhm.
It screamed, "Oh my God, we really need a sale. Please, somebody contact us, pretty please." That is not an impression that you want to give the market.
Yeah.
Instead, you want to appear confident, full of information that you're willing and ready to share freely. You have to come across as this confident, secure company that people want to feel the way you feel. And by being in your orbit, they get to experience those same emotions of confidence and clarity. So take a good hard look at what you're actually putting out there. Another part of this step is when I work with companies, we will do market research and we will actually do customer interviews as well as audience interviews. So for that same cybersecurity and managed services provider company, they wanted to be predominantly selling managed services. However, when we sent out the survey to their target audience, we found that everyone thought they just sold cybersecurity products. And so there was this huge disconnect between what people thought they were and what
Mhm.
they actually wanted to be selling. You have to find that out so that you know how much or how little work needs to be done to fix your public perception before people are ready to contact you.
I think that's wonderful because the audit is so important because I might think I'm doing everything right. I might think that the marketplace perceives me a certain way, but if I don't go out there and actually get the data, find out those answers to those questions that I think are true and they're not, I'm going to keep doing things that are going to give me less than ideal results. If today's episode got you thinking differently about your marketing strategy, here's something else to think about: your tax strategy. Just like marketing, most entrepreneurs are stuck using outdated tactics that don't actually move the needle. They're reacting instead of planning and leaving tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table every year. That's why we created a powerful resource at vitalstrategies.com/tax. It's designed to help growth-minded entrepreneurs like you stop guessing, stop overpaying, and start building a proactive tax plan that supports your bigger wealth-building goals. If you're serious about scaling your business and keeping more of what you earn, head over to vitalstrategies.com/tax and take the first step towards a smarter, more intentional financial future. So,
Exactly.
okay, this is great. What's next in the process?
So the next step is learn. And this is where you learn the psychology of your buyer. So within this step, I like to zoom in and zoom in again. So first, we need to look at what I call the stages of change matrix. And this is an adapted psychological model from my time as a corrections and substance abuse counselor, where the stages of change in substance abuse counseling helps you guide people through actually making lasting changes within their life. Ones that are really difficult. I mean, they've been leaning on unhealthy coping skills for years, sometimes decades. How are we supposed to change that behavior? This framework walks them through it. Now, applied to marketing, this helps buyers change their behavior from choosing your competitors or doing nothing at all to choosing you. And so when you break down the sales funnel further into the stages of change, you get these narrower windows where you can really dig into the internal psychology of what's going on for that person. And within each stage of change, we then look at the cognitive behavioral therapy triangle within that particular moment in that person's psychology. And the cognitive behavioral therapy triangle kind of looks like the recycling symbol, where it's these arrows going in a triangle around and around and around, and it's an endless, circular
Yep.
pattern. And what happens in marketing is marketers get so hyper fixated on changing the behavior, driving a particular behavior, click, book a call, purchase. But that's only 1/3 of the whole process. As humans, our thoughts drive emotional responses, which then drive our behaviors, and our behaviors affect the way that we experience the world, which in turn affects our thoughts, which then elicits a different emotional response, which elicits a different behavior. And so within a particular stage of change, we need to then intercept someone's thought, introduce a new thought to elicit a more positive and more feel good emotion for that person, which they're going to associate with your brand of making them feel this pleasurable response, this dopamine hit, whatever the case may be, which then elicits the behavior you're actually looking for within that particular stage of their readiness to buy.
I love that. And I've studied a little bit of psychology, especially on some of the sales side and negotiation, and it's so powerful. And people have no idea how it's impacting them. They think, oh,
Right.
those things would not influence me. But you're really using, I'll say, science to you talk about all those brain chemicals that people have going through them and how it impacts our behavior. It's tremendous.
Sure.
I love that triangle. So can you give me the triangle again and just
Yes.
that, because I think that is that's it's so powerful when we think about how we influence people.
Yes. So the pattern is thoughts affect our emotions, which affect our behaviors, which then affect our thoughts,
Yeah.
emotions, behaviors, and so on. And,
Yeah.
to your point, we often think, oh, could never work on me. I'm not manipulatable. This is not about manipulation. This is just about our brains are like operating systems. They work with certain frameworks. And even as you're listening to this podcast, this is happening for you. So, for example, you might be thinking, oh man, this chick's voice reminds me of a terrible teacher I had in elementary school, which elicits a certain emotion, which makes you go, I don't want to listen to this anymore. I'm going to turn it off.
Mhm.
Or you might be thinking, oh, some of this psychology stuff, this reminds me of what I studied in college, and this is really fascinating. And that elicits a feel good curiosity, which elicits the behavior of you learning more, you continuing to listen, maybe going to Patrick's website.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
happening right now.
I love this. And I think this is absolutely missing in marketing in general. I don't think this is the first. We talk to marketing people all the time, right? We see this, and I'm not seeing anybody having these conversations about bringing the psychology into the equation
Yeah.
and influencing people in a way that it feels like chess when everybody else is playing checkers. So,
Right.
um, yeah,
Right. And I want to say, this is not for the purpose of manipulating people into doing something they wouldn't normally do. That's why I left the world of B2C marketing, because I felt like it was so high pressure, peer pressure, FOMO, scarcity tactics,
mm,
impulse driven. I don't like I enjoy the world of B2B and helping entrepreneurs really connect with the audience that they can truly help
yeah,
and helping them grow organically and naturally. Because when you have a solution that can genuinely help other people or other businesses, you deserve to be successful.
yeah.
We need to get more of that out there. It's just a matter of framing up your message and what you have to offer in a way that people are going to be open and receptive to accepting and trying your solution.
Yeah, I love it. I love that we're making a very clear distinction between we're not trying to manipulate people into
Correct.
something they wouldn't do. What we're
Right.
doing here is, and I think about this, if I truly care about you and I want the best for you, I need to articulate the value that we can deliver and then let you make a good decision, right? And I think most of us are missing that in our marketing because we're not connecting with people at this level. It's so good. Okay, so now I'm really interested in the implement side of the
Yes.
equation because I'm at times overwhelmed by all of the opportunity
Hmm.
to market, right? Like I talked about some direct mail that I received, right? Like that's an option. I could put a billboard up. I've seen these like new interesting billboards. I'm like, that's fascinating. Then there's social media and digital marketing and email and Google ads and like the opportunities are almost endless. So I'm curious to talk about the implementation and how we take, I'll say, what we've learned about our potential customers, and now we turn that into a strategy that's going to drive them into our business. So
Yes. So, as you can probably tell so far, with this whole elite method, within each letter, I have these little sub models. Within the implement stage, this is where we're actually building. And the strategy for building something effective, an effective funnel, is what I call the 4 M's of marketing. Now, a lot of marketers and a lot of business owners go into their marketing thinking, oh my gosh, I'm seeing everybody on TikTok. I'm seeing everybody on Facebook, Instagram, and running LinkedIn
mhm,
ads. I guess I should do that too. They're starting with the mechanism.
mhm,
That is the last step that you should be thinking about.
mm,
The 4 M's of marketing are motivation, method, messaging, and mechanism. So the thing here is you first have to get into the mind of your buyer. You have to think, what is their motivation for interacting with me? What could they possibly hope to gain from their perspective, not your perspective? This
mhm,
isn't about sales. This isn't about growing your email list. It's what is the motivation from their side of things? And you need to have an altruistic motivation with your marketing. You have to be committed to helping the person on the receiving end of your marketing. And so that motivation piece is a bit of a litmus test. If your motivation doesn't match up with the stage of the funnel, a stage of change that they are actually in, then it's not going to work. So it's a really great litmus test for that. Next is method. This is how are we actually connecting with this person? Are we providing value? Are we providing something for them to interact with? Are we trying to manipulate them? You need to make sure that your method is ethical and that it's going to give them a positive experience on the other end. Next, we go into your messaging. Now, this is where the cognitive behavioral therapy triangle comes into play, because this is where you need to intercept a certain thought to introduce a new emotion that feels good to elicit a behavior that you want. And then lastly, the mechanism is, where does this person hang out?
mm,
When are they going to be most receptive to this message? I was just talking to a client of mine who told me this great story. He's a pilot. He is really into old cars, and I just love listening to his stories. He told me this one about I think he read it in a book about a company that specializes in car insurance for vintage cars. And what they did was they went to these car auctions and, a lot of people, when they're buying vintage cars, they might be older and they're trying to recreate an experience from when they were younger. Maybe that's when they met their wife. Maybe they were in this car when they went on their first date with their then girlfriend, now wife. And this company set up these little mini photo shoots where people could buy their car from auction and then have this little mock wedding photo shoot to recreate exact poses that they were in when they were younger.
Hmm.
And it was this amazing experience for people. The company met the new car owners right when they were thinking, oh, shoot, I just spent all this money on this amazing car and I have this amazing experience. I really want to protect it. And now this company is giving them something that they're going to cherish for the rest of their lives, this photo that recreates a special moment. That's the way you need to go about it, in that direction, not putting the mechanism first.
I love it. The problem with that as a business owner is that sounds hard to me. It's easier to just go, I'm going to buy an email list and just spam people, right? Like,
Yeah, but does that work?
no, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. But how do we go from like, because I love this. I think this is absolutely the right thing. How do we start to develop that, like that photo shoot? Like, that's great.
Yeah.
Right. How do we start to develop these interactions that are going to start to impact people from a psychological perspective and start to build that trust? And they're like, I want to do business with these people. So how do we do that? That sounds like the hard, scary part to me. And Ray, that's probably where you come in and like help craft these things. But I'm generally curious about how we do that.
I think it's easier than you might think. So the thing is, so this is why I love working with entrepreneurs and self-employed business owners, because those types of people are not afraid to do hard things.
Mm-hmm.
And you're either going to do the hard thing of buying an email list and spamming that list and getting frustrated that it's not working and then ruining your reputation. Because if that person on the receiving end of the cold email ever stumbles upon you on LinkedIn, they're going to go, oh, company that was spamming me, I had to block them. Not fun, not going there. That's a hard thing, to pour money into something that's not working. The alternative is to sit down, turn off your screens, sit in your chair, think about the person you want to connect with. Exercise that empathy muscle that we all have. We all did this as kids. You lay on the grass and you look up at the clouds and you imagine, what is that shape? What is this shape? Where could that bird be going? You have to do the same thing. Imagine what it's like for the person that you're trying to connect with, and then put yourself in their shoes. Make a list of all of the problems that they're dealing with, whether they're related to the solution you have to offer or not. And then think about, okay, with these problems, which one could I actually offer advice on? Which could I actually offer a solution to? And then the next step is, okay, when they have this problem, where do they go? Do they go to LinkedIn? Do they go to Instagram? Do they go to Google? Do they go to ChatGPT or Claude? Do they go to friends and family? Do they go to their local small business administration office? Do they look up events or webinars? Do they go to Eventbrite? I mean, you can tell, I can go on and on of where do they go. Figure out where they're going to look for a solution, and then put your solution right there.
Yeah. This is great. Because one of the things that I just challenged my daughter to do, she's 15, sharp kid, personality for days. And this is probably my fault. She's not that excited about going to college. And my wife and I have college degrees, and neither of us are like in that arena anymore. I've got a political science degree. I was going to be an attorney. And then I was like, I run into every attorney I meet and none of them like their job. And I'm like, So our encouragement has been, hey, if you're interested in something, like let's go get some experience in it before you go get educated. And so she was like, school's fine, but I might be interested in just like starting a business like you and mom. And so I'm like,
nice.
So I'm like, get out a yellow pad because most people won't do this, and write down 20 potential business ideas. And I'm like, the first 10 are going to be really hard.
Mhm.
And then the next 10 is where the gold's going to be. Those
Mhm.
are going to be the ideas that like, you're like, oh yes, this is really good. And I can combine number 17 with number 4, and that might make something. And so I say all that because I think that's where I'm thinking about these parts of the process, right? I'm thinking about the audit. What do we currently have as assets that we could utilize? Then I'm thinking about, the profile, going out and asking our people what's important to them and thinking about how they think. And then we start to move into like, okay, let's start to solve some of these problems that we've had, and let's utilize some of our maybe current assets so we can meet people where they're at
Mhm.
and do that. And it takes time. It takes some energy, but I think you're right. The entrepreneur knows how to do hard things. I've got a shirt that says hard work pays off, and it's like, yep,
Yes.
that's true. And everybody that we work with agrees with that. I also have a sign up, a letterboard sign in my office that says "Do hard things." It's like it, at the end of the day, whether it's your relationships, your health, your business, like doing the hard thing produces results, and it's worth it. It's where a lot of the joy comes from. And so I'm saying all of this because I think there's the people that are willing to invest in the process, not just looking for the drive-through breakthrough, like I'm just going to buy the mail list and spam them. Those are the people that get outsized results, and everybody's looking at them going, how did you get here? How did you do this thing? And it's like, well, I showed up every day and did the work, and now now I'm here. So I think that is worth acknowledging. So
Yeah. And I think, one thing that you'll never hear any other marketing agency owner tell you is an unpopular perspective in marketing, but it's that there is no one size fits all.
mhm,
There is no system that works for everybody. And the reason I say that is because when you're looking at other businesses, even if they're other businesses like yours, you can't just take the easy way out and replicate what they're doing because you are unique. What your business does is unique. The unique value and experience you bring is unique. And then your picture of your ideal buyer is unique. It's different from your competitors. And so when you have all these unique factors, it results in having to create a unique marketing system that works to connect you to the people that you really want to attract in.
right.
And if you're just copying what everyone else is doing, you're applying all the things that are irrelevant to your business.
Yeah. This is fantastic. So I'm thinking about implementation. I see implementations probably going to lead us to the T part of this.
Yes.
So can you talk us through T? What happens there?
Yeah, absolutely. So T is transform. And this is where most marketers and most people start getting a little uncomfortable and a little itchy in their own skin because it's all about data. It's all about metrics. So even though everything that I'm saying sounds like soft science, psychology, feelings, thoughts, emotions, like all that kind of qualitative, abstract stuff, you have to follow the patterns. And we see patterns in data. And unfortunately, we can't measure thoughts. We can't measure emotions, but we can measure behaviors. And if you track metrics intelligently and you really think through, oh, wait, these are vanity metrics and these are actual revenue driving metrics, then you can start to validate or refute what you tested earlier in your funnels.
Yeah.
And as with any social science, it's all about an empirical perspective. So you have to test and iterate. And that iteration comes when you factor in what you're learning from what the metrics show.
Yeah. I love this. And I think one thing, I'm going to go back to my drive through breakthrough comment earlier. I think most business owners can be impatient in general. And so is there to be able to get good data?
Mhm.
And I think about, I heard this analogy once and it makes sense to me. Like if I take a seed and I bury it, and then I dig it up to look at it and see if it's grown, and bury it and dig it up. It's like it's not going to make any progress, right? Because I've got to
Yeah.
let it do its thing, right? Um, is there a time frame that we should? And I understand we're constantly iterating, but like some of this stuff takes time. it takes a minute to really see the change start to happen, the transformation start to happen in our business. From implementation to transformation is not overnight, right? The seed doesn't
Right.
turn into an oak tree. So I don't know if you can give us any thought process around like, this is the commitment we should really be making when we start to execute on our marketing strategy before we start to see like real results.
Yes. So whenever I build a marketing strategy for my clients, I'm not just doing the buyer psych profiling and building out the implementation plan. We're also building out the transformation plan, the metrics plan. What are we going to measure? What do these measurements indicate to us? And what do they, more importantly, what do they indicate at each stage of change? Now, it's within that when you break it down in this horizontal fashion along the buyer journey from someone first developing the problem that you have to solve and then becoming aware of the problem and then being open to seeking out a solution to the problem and so on. There are 11 stages of change, so I won't go into all of them right now. That's where you have to match up the right metric to the right experience and behavior that you're trying to track. And in some cases, especially if we're talking about visibility messaging that we might test out over LinkedIn ads or something like that, you can get results in a few days, depending on your TAM, your total addressable market. If, however, you're trying to gauge whether or not, let's say, an email nurture sequence is working, well, first of all, you cannot email people every other day. That is just going to drive them away.
Right.
So your cadence is another factor in this whole constellation of understanding your metrics and what do certain behaviors actually indicate. You might need 2 to 3 months to see if your email nurture sequence is working. Now we can check the performance of each email with open rates and click-through rates and things like that. But that's the other thing is a lot of people kind of succumb to these grandiose promises that marketing agencies put out on Facebook and Instagram ads about, oh, you'll get 90 leads in 90 days. Well, that might not be enough time to really tell you
Hmm.
how your message is resonating in the market. And those might be very desperate out of ICP leads. They may not be good quality for you. You have to make sure that you're matching the number that you're tracking and given enough time to your point of how I love that seed analogy. I'm going to use that. I love that.
Yeah.
You have to give it enough time. And the amount of time really depends on the metric itself. So that's kind of an ambiguous answer in the whole it depends thing, but the mechanism will tell you how long you need to let it live for in order to determine if it's effective.
Yeah. This is great. I think you're leading us to the E in elite.
Yes.
So
Yes.
do you want to finish this up there?
So other than the buyer side profiling bit, this is my second favorite part of the whole process. I'm a very human to human collaboration, team oriented person. And so this is where I start to get really excited because the last E, the enhance step of this whole process is tapping into the human insights from within your team. And if you're a solopreneur or if you're doing founder led sales, this might actually involve you more than other team members. But this is where you take those human insights and you feed them back into the top of the process. So enhance is all about, so let me take a step back real quick. When we're doing the implement process, we're not just building top of funnel. We're building a completely full funnel journey from demand generation through sales enablement and into retention programs. So this is the other thing about marketing that focuses just on lead gen. When you focus purely on just getting the contact information, just getting the sale, you're satisfying one part of your business, but you're neglecting the bigger picture of the business. Now, I do marketing that is going to not only elicit pre-sold leads, so the sales team has an easier time actually converting, but also that's going to contribute to increased retention and LTV. So if we can increase that lifetime value of the customer, you're going to have a more stable growth pattern. And when we go into enhance, we want to take human insights and learnings from the sales reps who are at that point of conversion and the customer support team who's actually charged with delivering on the promise you made at the beginning of the funnel. You have to feed those insights back into the system to make sure you're preempting concerns and breaking down fears, and particularly for retention, maximizing your tool adoption. If you're a
Mhm.
software as a service or any kind of service-based business, you need to make sure that the people who you've actually done all that hard work to convert stay with you. And that means you need to ingrain your product or service into their daily lives.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I love how you've taken it from let's take a look at what you're currently doing, figure out what our assets are, to really impacting people at a different level that we're used to from a marketing perspective. And then I'll say, wrapping that up, it's not just marketing like let's make a sale. Let's make a relationship that's long lasting, right? Let's figure out how to get people plugged in and keep them plugged in to our business so we can keep providing the value that they need, and will continue to be profitable. And I think about, I don't know if this is a good example or not, but like all of us need to be well, physically well, right? And but it's so hard, right? And I think about, those behavior changes that need to happen from, going to the gym to eating well to, making sure I'm getting to the doctor and all those other pieces. And I love that you're helping business owners like see the opportunities to impact people's lives. Now we're on the finance and tax side of the equation, right? Like we think this is super important to people's lives, right? If you give less
Yeah.
money to the government, you can build more wealth and impact, your family and community in ways that you wouldn't have otherwise. And so it's like I love the idea of making a bigger impact using these tools that you've outlined here. And I think it's just so important for the business owner to consider all of these things that you're talking about, and really can like start to take action on them, because it's critical for business. It's critical for the people that we're serving. So
Exactly. And that's why I'm such a fan of content marketing, because unlike ads where you have to pour money into ads, and as soon as you stop the money, the ads stop. And at a different point in time, they may yield completely different results based on an algorithm. With content, it lives online forever.
mhm.
And with tiny, subtle tweaks
Yeah.
to that content, which costs virtually nothing, you basically pay once to create something, and it generates top of funnel,
Mm.
mid funnel, and bottom funnel and retention all the way through the lifetime of your business. I mean, to me, if you're going to spend money on marketing at all, whether you're doing it yourself or you're hiring someone, that's what I would invest in, is the thing that has more longevity and impacts more points in your business to stabilize and grow revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. This is great. And I think you're laying the foundation here nicely for some of the tools that you've made available to our listeners, and for people to check out. So I think people should start off at cornellcontentmarketing.com, and that's Cornell, Cornell, contentmarketing.com. Just go there. And then we'll have links to this in the show note. If you go to cornellcontentmarketing.com /book or /elite dash toolkit, you've got some great things for people to check out. And then I think these are for, I think you to get a flavor for, the work that you're doing. Obviously, people have a flavor here, but I think one of the things that we talk a lot about that is important is we're big believers in who, not how. Like I love the
Mhm.
how. I love to understand the how, and then I want to bring a who into my life to help me execute on those things. Just like the health analogy I was talking about earlier, like the success rate goes up dramatically when you have a friend to go to the gym with or a personal trainer to create some accountability. And I
Yeah.
think about, somebody that's been there, done that, seen so many different things. I can try to figure it out on my own, but as the business owner, I have my unique ability that I like to lean into and do that thing. And I want to bring everybody else in around me to, bring their unique ability to execute on those things. And so, um, yeah, I think that's also important. And you've got some different ways for people to connect with you, to engage. If they're like, Ray, I need this in my life and I don't want to, the book is great, but I need some help. So, what are best ways for people to connect with you? Is the website the best way to go if they're like, I don't need to know anymore. I'm just ready to engage with Ray and her team?
Yeah, either the website or LinkedIn. If you go to our website, cornellcontentmarketing.com, and you go to our contact page, you can book a call with me. You're not going to book with a sales rep. You're going to book right with me right there on the page. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. My first name is spelled kind of weird. It's Rai and then Cornell, like the university. But like you said, I really just want people to have these tools. And even if you never hire me, you never contact me, that's okay. Just start looking at your marketing differently, and you can get that toolkit, and it walks you through the complete process of building your own strategy that you can start using right away. And so does the book.
I love it. And I think the issue is if people don't act, as entrepreneurs, we stay stuck in the same marketing loop, right?
Yeah.
We're chasing leads, we're draining our budgets, we're falling behind to competitors who win with smarter strategy. And I think you're bringing smarter strategy to the table here. And when we apply this psychology, this strategy of bringing psychology into our marketing, I think it really stops having to guess, right? The content converts, it's connecting with people on a level that starts to convert, and it starts to fill the funnel, and their brand earns trust. And even before those first sales calls, like I loved your thought process around like when they show up at your door, when I show up at their door, if I'm making all these, if I'm knocking on doors and my marketing was effective, we've already got relationship, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we can start to scale the business without wasting our time and money. And I love how you bring all this together with like, let's not just bring them into the funnel. Let's keep them long-term as customers, right? As clients that continue to engage with the business. So I think this has been wonderful. Anything else that we should be talking about before we wrap up our conversation about the power of bringing psychology into our marketing?
I think, a lot of people have this negative connotation towards marketing and advertising, and rightfully so, because we've been bombarded with ads and pressure and kind of like these icky feeling tactics our whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
As you're doing your marketing, another great litmus test is, how would I feel if I was on the receiving end of this? How would I feel? Would this feel valuable, interesting, curiosity provoking, all those good things, helpful? Or is this making me feel like, oh, I'm not doing well enough, or I'm not good enough, or, oh, I'm dumb compared to the competition? And, don't make your people feel bad. Make them feel good. You've worked so hard to create a business that provides actual value. Lean into that even more all the way through your marketing.
I love it. This has been a wonderful conversation, so insightful. And I really do think that when the entrepreneur embraces these strategies, marketing to other businesses, that it's transformational. It takes you from, being disconnected from your buyer to strategic and data driven, and you get to a level where you're nobody's competing with you because you've built this relationship and this trust that is just powerful. So, Rai, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap on another powerful episode of the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending your time with us today. I truly hope you found value in this conversation with Rai Cornell. If her psychology-first approach to marketing sparked some new ideas for your business or helped you see your strategy in a new light, do me a favor and share this episode with someone else who could benefit from it. Whether it's a fellow entrepreneur, a business partner, or someone on your team, this is the kind of insight that can make a real difference. Be sure to come back next week. We've got another high-impact episode lined up that's all about helping you grow, protect, and optimize the wealth you're working so hard to build. And if you're ready to take action right now and start building out a smarter, more intelligent tax strategy, head over to vitalstrategies.com/tax. It's time to stop guessing and start strategizing. And remember, you're a vital entrepreneur. You're vital because you're the backbone of our economy, creating opportunities, driving growth, and making an impact. You're vital to your family, creating abundance in every aspect of life. And you're vital to me because you're committed to growing your wealth, leading with purpose, and creating something truly great. Thank you for being a part of this incredible community of vital entrepreneurs. I appreciate you, and I look forward to having you back here next time on the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast, where we help entrepreneurs minimize their taxes, master wealth, and optimize their lives.